On April 10th, 1912, the RMS Titanic, the largest, most luxurious ship ever built, set sail from Southampton, England, and was destined to New York City. She carried over 2,200 souls on board. 4 days later, she would become one of the most haunting maritime tragedies in history. This is a story of Titanic, a ship built on ambition, sunk by ice, and immortalized in the heart of millions. I really recommend that you watch the movie. It's awesome, very beautiful. The 1997 movie, it's one of my favorites. I believe currently it could be found on Netflix. And if not, you could watch it for free on Pluto. Pluto TV. Do not spend a bunch of money on a rocket to go up to the satellite Pluto. Not that Pluto. The Pluto service, the Pluto app. Be smart, beautiful people. Titanic was a marvel of the modern age, nearly 900 feet long, with 11 decks, first class sign-in holes, and state-of-the-art technology. She was called unsinkable. Why? Because she had 16 watertight compartments, believed to prevent her from going underwater, even in the worst conditions. She was operated by the White Star Line, constructed in Belfast, Ireland, and captained by Edward Smith, a veteran sailor on his final voyage before retirement. Of course, he did not have much to live. He expected to die within the following 10 years, but who would have known? He would have died within the following 10 days, within the following 10 hours, within the following 10 minutes, 10 seconds, 10 milliseconds. The Grim Reaper was getting close to him. Titanic was more than a ship. She was a floating palace, a symbol of pride, class, and empire. Some people believed that not even God could sink it, but they were wrong. On board were the wealthiest people in the world, like John Jacob Astor, a millionaire real estate mogul, the fourth, I meant, as well as Isidore and Ida Strauss, co-owners of Macy's, and even Margaret Brown, an American socialite who would later be known as the unsinkable Molly Brown. Most of the passengers were not rich, they were middle class. Many were immigrants preparing to enter America in hope for a better life. They came from places like Ireland, Sweden, and Syria. The ship was divided by class. Lavish luxury, which was basically the equivalent of first class, as well as tight, bare quarters for the third class. Titanic was a symbol of opportunity, but also of the stark divides in society. On April 14th, 1912, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean. The collision ripped a 300-foot gash along her starboard side. Water began pouring into her compartments. Within 2 hours and 40 minutes, she was gone. The Titanic had lifeboats for only half of those on board. Worse, many were launched half empty. There was chaos, confusion, and heartbreak. The women and kids were first. Policy saw many families separated forever. Musicians famously played hymns as the ship sank, practicing something they really loved, music. Captain Smith went down with his ship. I would like to say something about that music. As you know, these days in cartoons, when something dramatic happens, the characters play this violin sound. Something like that. I know SpongeBob has expressed that a lot. But this musical gesture comes from the Titanic, actually. Captain Smith went down with his ship, and Ida Strauss, refusing to leave her husband, said, "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go." Of the 2,224 people on board, only 705 survive. The rest, dead, either by freezing to death in the water or drowning. The world was in shock. The Titanic disaster prompted major changes in maritime safety. Now, on cruises and all sorts of small boat tours, including the boats to go to Alcatraz to visit, there have to be a life vest. There has to be some form of security system in place. And for big ships, there need to be lifeboats that can fit everybody on board. There also has to be a 24-hour radio communication system, as well as International Ice Patrol, which is run by the U.S. Coast Guard. They are there to take the emergency radio calls and save people when necessary. The wreck lay hidden at the bottom of the Atlantic for 73 years until Dr. Robert Ballard, a scientist, discovered it in 1985. Today, its rusted hull lies 12,500 feet below the ocean, slowly disappearing. The Titanic's more than a shipwreck. You can still book a tour down there with Ocean Gate Expeditions. On their website, you could book it. Or even with Blue Marble. They'll take you down there with a submarine. But it's very expensive. It costs $250,000 per person. Titanic is more than a shipwreck. It's a symbol of hubris, tragedy, and human error, but also of courage, love, and the human spirit. Books, documentaries, and films, including James Cameron's 1997 blockbuster, have made sure the story is never forgotten, and it should not be, because the Titanic reminds us of a simple truth. No matter how big, how mighty, or how perfect something seems, it can still break. But sometimes the stories that survive the wreckage are what makes us whole again. Thank you for joining me on Strawberry Ink. Until next time, honor the past, question the present, always stay afloat, no matter how deep the water gets. May all those on board rest in peace.